Yeah, baby. Here we go. Here we go. I just scared the crap out of our guest today, but that's what we do over
I
here. We bring that big time energy. So, you guys, I got an amazing guest today, Paige Dungan. She is a book publicist. Paige, welcome to
what
the show.
what? Hi. This is probably already the funnest podcast I've ever been on with your energy. I love it.
There we go. There we go. So, look, book publicist. That's kind of a
Mhm.
sexy title.
It
Talk to
is.
me about what exactly it is. What does it mean? And why should people care that you are a book publicist?
Absolutely. Well, we're kind of this secret weapon in moving book sales that is often forgotten about. So, when you think about launching a book, you always think about your marketing strategy, email, social. But what a lot of authors forget is the book strategy and how to get placed into media. And the reason that's important is it builds your brand proof, but it also is a great way to drive leads into your funnel. So, it's the very beginning of everything else that you're working on. So, as a book publicist, it's my job to make your story look sexy, your book look interesting, and really be able to get you placements that have engagement and impact. Really, I'm a super connector. That's what a book publicist is, right? I like to think in real estate, you have your real estate agent and you have the seller and buyer. That's what we are. We're like the real estate agent to the media. The media comes to us for stories. We have the stories from our clients.
I
Simplest way
love
to
it.
kind of break it down. Yeah.
I love it. It's interesting because I worked in the world of basketball with the NBA, and media was a big
Hmm.
part of what we did to help players get drafted. But it's funny that you call yourself a book publicist.
Hmm.
Does that mean, because most people are like, oh, I'm a publicist or I'm in
Hmm.
PR, I just do all things PR. So are you saying you specialize specifically for authors who are releasing books?
That's it. That's all I do. I
Oh,
used to be in the world of general publicists. I worked for a magazine for many years, but I love authors and their fire and their drive and the story they tell. So I only work with authors who are launching or those that are looking to like bring fire back into their book if it's kind of fallen flat.
okay. I'm so glad you said that. Here's what I notice for a lot of authors. They write
Hmm.
their book, they get
Hmm.
ready for their launch. There's so much energy that goes into the initial launch, right? Because we're so excited. For a lot of people, it's their first book. They're like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing it. They go to the launch. Their launch does fairly well, right?
Hmm.
Topping the Amazon charts, selling a couple hundred copies, feeling really good, being like,
Hmm.
okay. But
Hair
then there's
flip, right?
typically a week to a month after, most
Hmm.
people's sales go straight from here, straight down, and
Yep.
become very stagnant. The majority of authors, that happens. I want you to tell us, why does this tend to happen?
Hmm.
And what are some of the things we can do to keep the momentum high after that initial launch?
Absolutely. Well, why this happens is it's kind of the old way of thinking, right? Where the rule of thumb was you have to get as many pre sales in as you can by launch day for your book to be considered a success. Well, that's an old way of thinking. Nowadays, yes, a good portion of your sales will come from pre sale. However, a truly successful book lives on for 2 to 3 to 5 years. So you really want to play a long game with your book. This goes if you're looking to self publish again or a publishing deal, because publishers are looking for that book's longevity, not the scale up and go down. So that's why it happens, because that's what we've been taught. That's what we've been told. We got to do it in pre sale. If we don't sell books in pre sale, we will never sell our book, right?
Mhm.
Now, how to maintain that same energy that you have, because you go through the author burnout, right? Because you've spent all your time and energy, money, resources into your book's publication day. I always treat a book launch as any other product you're launching, right? If you're launching a new digital course, a new, I don't know, a gadget, whatever it is, you have a 12-month marketing strategy, right? The same should be for your book. It should not be just lead up and then fall off. You wouldn't do that with any other product you're launching. You wouldn't just launch it in the world and be like, okay, I hope it does well from here on out. And so I think the key is this is kind of what I tell my authors. It's kind of like a 60-40 split. Have 60% of your interviews and efforts up to pre sale, but that entire following year to two, have the other 40%. And a great medium to do this is with podcasts. And so, really have your podcast booked heavy for 12 months, right? And know that TV will be big in pre-sale, and then it'll probably be like sprinkled here and there. But podcasts and podcast show, they're the number one driver outside of book talkers and influencers that drive book sales. So it's really important. I think where people fall off is having the mindset and like the true 12-month press plan to sustain.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. I'm curious about this, okay? I have friends that are in the PR world, as I mentioned, and one of the things that I always find interesting is that there's different types of PR visibility that hit different results. And you started to allude to that. I want to kind of ask you, what type of PR visibility or medium is the best for like the shock and awe factor, right? The like, oh shit, they're legit. Like, what is the oh shit, they're legit PR factor when it comes to your book? What type of medium is best suited for that?
Okay, truly, if you're looking at it, you're looking at a morning show placement, right? Like the morning show, I'm talking about Good Morning America, Today Show, CBS Mornings. Like that is when, and you don't have to be like a known author. They truly choose books based on interest in the content of the book. So anybody has a chance to get with it. But the thing is to know, here's where authors miss in the planning. You have to pitch your book at least 6 months before your pub date to even try to get a slot in their lineup, because book producers book 6 to 8 months out. And so truly that moment of like, oh, wow, you're going to be somebody is a morning show placement. I will also say though, the biggest trend right now is social influencers selling books. And if you can get in alignment with the book talkers, they were the biggest contributor to the rise in publishing sales this past year, were book talkers. And isn't that interesting that kind of this new digital media landscape through social is really also correlating to book sales?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Paige. Let me ask you this though, because the book talkers on TikTok, they can move copies of books, and I've seen several people do it very successfully. Do you find that that is working just as well? Because a lot of people that listen to this are nonfiction authors. Do you find that book talkers are also efficient with nonfiction authors? Because I've heard mostly it's a very big fiction type of thing.
It's fiction, but all the authors I work with are nonfiction in business and entrepreneurship. So yes, and that's what I wanted to kind of give a side note on. You don't have to be a memoir, a novelist, right, to work with them. Absolutely not. You can be a nonfiction author. It just comes down to the story you're telling and why they want to be interested in it. And especially nonfiction, there is a huge rise of the nonfiction category that brings something tangible, relatable, and lifestyle element to it that book talkers really like.
Okay, cool. Can I put you on the spot and like
do it?
Give an example with my book, for example, and see if we could put together a mini strategy, because I want people to see that like it's not something that you have to spend an entire year planning the plan. You can figure something out right now and then take action. So my last book is called Big Idea to Bestseller. Okay.
Yep.
It's how to write, publish, and launch a nonfiction book to grow your business and make an impact, right? Makes sense. Now, this book came out last December, so 4 months ago. And, it's doing really well. We're very excited about it. We're using it in a lot of ways. But let's say I wanted to up the PR and I wanted to explore the book talkers. As a publicist, like where would I go first? What would I do? I want to be a case study for everyone who's listening so that they can do the exact same thing for their book if they had launched it within the last year or want another spark to drive more sales.
Absolutely. So here's the kicker with your book and getting it in front of the book talkers. The book talkers, this is what so many authors forget about. It's not about your book, it's about you. So like, what are those jazzy, snazzy elements? So you were talking about working with the NBA. That is what you need to be talking about with them. And your book just is the tool to give to their audience so they can be like you, right? It's all like aspirational and wanting to know who you are and how their audience can relate. And with influencers, they want, like I said, the jazzy and the snazzy. So you've got to use either if you don't have to work for the NBA to have an opportunity, but what are some of the struggles or stripes or relatable moments that you can put into your story to have them connect to that and be like, ooh, my audience would connect with that too. And so That's where it would start. And honestly, when you pitch an influencer, it should be no more than 2 paragraphs. It should be just the nuts and bolts, because an influencer and most media nowadays is turning away from the traditional long pitches. I
Interesting.
mean, because what authors forget, media gets pitched to 400 to 500 pitches a day that they're combing through a day.
Wow.
So you have a very small percentage. And then influencers are probably getting pitched the same amount. We don't have that data yet to compare the two. But so you've got to just make it relatable and engaging for them to even snag your idea.
Wow. And then, okay, let's dig in a little bit here. I could already hear people saying, "Oh, this sounds good. Like you've already changed my entire mind about this." And we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about creating your right story and the right pitch.
Yeah.
But I want to ask the question that I know everyone's going to ask, which is like, okay, I reach out to them, they seem excited. Like, how do you negotiate price? And what does that look like? Is it just give them a book, give them 10 books, give them books for their whole audience? Is it a certain amount per thousand impressions, per follower? Like, how have
Mm-hmm.
you kind of seen that from a book promotional type of thing?
Okay, from book promotion, I have to say this in true transparency with the books that I've done, we haven't paid for any placements because these books have been at a status where the authors have a really good following. However, that's not to say if you have a smaller following, look at what platforms you can offer them. Do you have a podcast? Do you have an email list? Like combine all of your numbers together, right? Don't just say I have 2,000 on Facebook, right? Combine all of your data and make it look a little bit more robust, and then give them opportunities. Like what is something that you can offer them, whether it's coverage on your website or when they have a new product coming out, you agree to promote it, whatever that is. That's going to sweeten the pot for them, because I will tell you, book talkers are not like the everyday influencer that you're working with that wants to get paid 50K to wear like the latest t-shirt, right? They truly, the good book talkers are looking for those good books and the stories. And that's why you just need to build a really good offer for them that doesn't necessarily have to come from a monetary standpoint.
Mm, We're 10 minutes in and we are flying. Come on. This is the good stuff here, Paige.
I love talking about this. I love
Yeah.
helping authors.
No, it's good. It's good. All right. I want to go back to something though that you'd said that I thought was really interesting because I think it's a really fascinating point where I said, "Hey, how am I going to get this book in front of them?" And you said it's not about the book, it's about you first.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a huge thing, right? And a lot of people skip out on it because they're like, well, I don't have much sexiness to have. All I have is the book,
Yep.
right? And I think people don't give themselves enough credit for their greatness, their transformation, what they've
Mm-hmm.
been through, the way they can relate to people. And so I want to know how do we start to curate this story? Is there
Yeah.
a framework that you use to help authors curate their pitch or their story or their ask to really
Mm-hmm.
help show who they are?
Absolutely. And it starts with you don't need to go biographical. This year I did this, this year I did that. No, let's hit the highlights. Like if you have overcome, I'm going to throw out just a few examples, right? If you've overcome depression, anxiety would be an example, mental health, right? And you feel open to sharing those elements, do. If you have had an insane career pivot or lost everything and are building it back, that's another relatable element, right? If you are a single parent struggling with raising children and doing this, but you wanted to write this book to help influence, you can start to see how the craft of the arc of the story comes, right? Because you wrote the book and the book is nonfiction, but why? Like, why did you write this book? And that's the story of you.
Mm. And when you're doing that, right? When you're thinking about the story, what if you're somebody who worked like for example, I used to work with basketball players.
Mm-hmm.
Publishing books wasn't in the realm of what I
Mm-hmm.
did. And for somebody that maybe they were working in tech and now they're
Yep.
doing fitness coaching and their books about
Yep.
fitness coaching because they're using it to break in or to grow their business or to
Mm-hmm.
add for their credibility. What happens? How do you position it if you come from a different background
Yeah.
and your book is almost used as the transition to jumpstart your next career?
That's a great question. And what that is what clicked in your mind to take you from tech to fitness? Why? What was it? Did you like what inspired you? Like what mentally made you make that pivot? And that's going to be your credibility into this new book.
I love it.
And and I think what authors forget, they have to be vulnerable. Sometimes we stand behind our words and they really want to get to know you first. So you've got to kind of take off this barrier behind your book and just be confident in the mindset of like, I am someone to be heard about. And I always tell authors we work with, you have to believe you're an expert on whatever topic you're selling in your book. You're the expert, even if, like you said, you just transitioned, you're the expert on it.
If you have a book, by definition, you have authority, right? Right.
Absolutely. You did the hardest part.
And you did it. And I think this is such a great point. And I want to elaborate on this is, look, I wrote my first book when I was 22 years old working for the Los Angeles Lakers. I released it 6 months later after I turned 23 years old. And it was a career development book. Okay. And I had every doubt, every insecurity, every thought of like, who am I to write this book? But at the end of the day, because I had a physical book in my hand, other people saw me as the expert. And I needed to see myself as the expert. And what that allowed was opportunities. And then that built the confidence. And then it led to just owning that. And then it didn't matter that I was 1 year removed from college, yet I had a best-selling career development book. That was the story that allowed me to. And then what happened was people were like, well, why would we work with you instead of someone with 20 years of experience?
Yeah.
And then what I was able to do is I was able to say, well, look, they may have more experience, but I'm closer in age to your people. I can help them because I know what they're going through. I know what the social media is like, right? And so knowing that you're a publicist, like, how can we navigate and curate our story so that it fits what's needed based on what the other side is looking for without lying about who you are, without trying to make some bullshit up? Like, how do we do that?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to take an example of a book that we just did. It's all about careers, right? And so, like, how do you make that sexy and exciting? Because it's kind of like your book, right? A career guidebook, a development book. And so, when you look at, so what we capitalized on was all the tech layoffs that were starting to take place, right? And all of the millennials and Gen X's that were going to TikTok to share their experiences about it. We positioned that author as the career expert, and she was, right, like she had experience. She was new to like this social media thing, right? But we still positioned her with this career toolbox or a career book. Oh my gosh, I can't get that out. With her toolbox of knowing that she can speak exactly to all these trending themes, right? So you don't have to lie about anything. You just need to be seen and have credible proof of what you're speaking to. So, for example, our guy that went from tech to fitness, right? And there are trending stories about, let's say, for example, 90% of Americans now view a healthy lifestyle as, the way of the future. Well, you have social media content that you've done posts on about fitness already. Maybe you've done a few podcasts. Take all of that, and that alone is enough credibility to position yourself as an expert on speaking to why is that percentage so high for Americans? What can Americans do to capitalize on a healthy lifestyle, right? And that's the thing. You don't have to lie about it. Just know how to connect yourself to trending news themes, and you have enough proof to do it. So if you haven't started posting like on social and things like that, go ahead and ramp that up. It doesn't mean you have to be a social media influencer, but so if media does come and look at your page, they're like, oh, they talk about it. But that's kind of the gist that they will, right? So you just need to have sprinkled there. A website is great. But just sprinkle throughout, and you don't have to say, I've been in the fitness industry 20 plus years, right? To have that credibility. And so I think what people also forget, and especially authors forget, nobody was an expert at first. Nobody. You look at the greats, right? Like from Tony Robbins to Bill Gates. I mean, nobody was an expert. So you just have to have just enough belief to be able to like sway your thinking and have the media really hold on to you and be like, yeah, this is my go-to person for, all things health and wellness, for example. Because that's really where you want to get to as an author, is not just having a one-time media hit for your book, but being the resource for the journalist, right? And having them come back to you back and forth in this relationship, that will also help your book live on for the trajectory that it should.
I love everything you said, but I really like that end point because I think sometimes as authors, we're like caught up into like who's in our referral network,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
But we
absolutely.
forget that once we get on a show or once we get into the media,
Hmm.
they also don't want to have to find somebody new every single time
They
to
don't.
do an to get a quote or to do an
Mm-mm.
article or to have a contributor. They want to have, hey, here are my top 5 people for this. I'm going to go in this order.
Hmm.
Can you confirm that as someone who's worked with Success Magazine, someone who is in this business
Hmm.
from a media side? Can you confirm that that's like a huge thing? And so if you as an author build a relationship with someone on the media side, not only will you be like their go-to person, but they could
Hmm.
also introduce you to like their journalists from other sites.
Absolutely. So this is happening for our current author, and it's happened for quite a few, where Good Morning America has come back to her now 3 times,
Wow.
right, to be an expert. Wall Street Journal has come back to her 3 times, and she's speaking at one of their summits, right? And so it is like news cycles are kind of like on 3 month cycles. So think about it. You will interview and build this relationship. If you really do your work and just serving them and building that relationship with the media, they're going to come back probably in 90 days, which is also a great cycle for your book marketing, right? And your leads, because you want that kind of 90-day startup again. And it is the beautiful thing is for another author was on today, and then they introduced us to CNBC, where they got a spot on a different show on CNBC. And it's this domino effect. Once you're in with a network, it's a very small group of
Hmm.
producers. And so it is all like a great way and a great tool. I'm so happy you brought this up, Jake, because a great tool to also get in with the media is bylined opportunities, right? So something that I teach all of our authors to do is the power of a byline. So writing an article for today.com, right? abcnews.com. You think about success, the strive, entrepreneur, fast company. That is a quick way that you guys can start doing now. You don't need a plan. Start researching how your book, you can pull like the top 5 ways to increase productivity, right? Or the top tool that will land you business success, whatever your book is about, and write a draft article and then pitch it to their editors, because journalists are yearning for content and there's not enough writers to keep up with these machines. So if I can say like one action to start doing now, you're a writer. Just take some of those tools in your book and turn them into articles and start pitching them.
That's fantastic because here's the other thing. I would bet, and I'll lend your expertise on this, but I would bet that if you pitch an entrepreneur or a fast company, okay, without a book, the percentages are fairly low, but you could still do it because you can still always stand out and find a way in. But if you're basing that article off of your new book or your best-selling book, you have just immediately in their mind come across now as a more legitimate source and writer. And I bet you the chances of getting in the door would be higher. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, it's like 50-50, because we've had some authors have real success before their book comes out with bylined
Sure.
articles with them because they have a proven business and story behind it, right?
Sure.
But then the authors that have proof, like New York Times bestselling, Amazon bestselling, whatever that is in your category, that really helps move the conversations quicker for them. And like I said, what they will do is they'll probably put a link in your bio. So know that the lead of your story will be on a topic, but to have that byline and searchability for the sales of your book and your marketing efforts is priceless. So
Mm.
truly go out there, whatever entrepreneur, business medium, whatever your book is about. For nonfiction authors, bylined article placement is the quickest way to get press and SEO for your book.
Wow, that's good stuff and actionable. That's
And
awesome.
actionable.
Like that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I also thought about this when you were talking about being in that referral circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is and the every 3 months or so. It's very similar when you have a book. It's the same thing on the speaking circuit. So if you work with, I did a lot of speeches with high school students. Well, the school or the organization would hire me, and then 4 years later, hire me
Mm-hmm.
again, or 2 years later if it was just upperclassmen. And by doing it really great job once, using your
Mm-hmm.
book to get in the door, then doing a really great job once, then you continuously get that repeat business and
Mm-hmm.
those referrals. And that's what allows you to kind of just build this snowball effect. So I'd love for you to jump in on that, because I know you got really excited when I talked about the
I
speaking
did.
circuit. So let it fly.
Yes. Okay. Because there have been so many authors that we've worked with that they're like, I'm not a speaker. I'm like, you literally are crafting a keynote from your work, right? From your passion. And so it's not saying you're not going to go to places that make you feel uncomfortable, right? You're going to go to places that are in alignment with your book. But a book is a great way to get speaking opportunities, because companies and organizations love to have a tool to give to their employees, their students, their contractors. They love having a tangible asset that they can leave behind, right? Because we've all seen it before. You go and see a motivational speaker, you feel great, you feel inspired, but then you're left on your own, right? To figure it out. But to hear from an author who's a very well-known expert in whatever field you are, and to come on stage and to teach and motivate, and then actually give them the playbook, is invaluable for a company. And so that's why I always tell authors to start out like, ask your network first about speaking opportunities, and then truly go out, and you can easily Google and look for call for speakers in different categories, whatever category. You don't need a speaking agent. You don't have to go to the extreme right now, right? But truly, like, I always challenge my authors is do 3 pitches a day in speaking, right? Everybody can find 3 organizations, 3 companies, whatever that might be in alignment, and you can send them a quick pitch, right, about you and your book, because it gets you in the habit of really your storytelling is intact, and then it gets you in a habit of communication, which will also help you with all of your pitching, right? Your press pitching too. But I am so speaking can drive book sales in numbers that you will not see otherwise, because they're bulk sales.
Oh yeah, I think speaking is one of the greatest things and opportunities as an author. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many ways to monetize speaking beyond
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, here's a fee. It's,
Mm-hmm.
oh, here's a fee and you could sell your book in the back of the room. It's, oh,
Yep.
here's your fee. Also, we have a separate budget to buy
To do the
150
buy.
copies. We could
Mm-hmm.
also do, hey, no fee, but you get a booth and you could sell your copies.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different ways that you can use it. You could say, hey, I'll do it for free, but I want an email address of everyone who attended and they all get a free copy, right? Like there's so
Exactly.
many ways to do it. Now, Paige, we talked fast so far. We've talked about a lot. We've gotten fired up on
See?
this show.
I've
So
been
so
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 excited.
here's what I want to do is I kind of want to circle it back, right? We've talked
Yeah.
about podcasts, we've talked about TV, we've talked about getting bylines, we've talked about guest posting,
Yep.
right? Creating articles. I mean, we've talked about a lot of different techniques, the 12-month marketing plan. Like we've talked about a lot of
Like your
really cool
mini
stuff.
PR boot camp right here,
Yeah.
right?
Shit. Like I'm like, oh my God, I had so many things to do. But I want to simplify it a little bit.
Let's
Okay. I'm
do
going to
it.
give you a couple examples of different authors and where they're at. And I'd love for you to share what you would say is the best area of PR that they could focus on for the
Okay, let's
next
do it.
30 to 90 days. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. And you may repeat the same answer over and over again. And if you do, guess what, everybody? That means it's important.
You need to do it.
Yeah. So let's use the author. Okay. We'll give somebody my situation. My book came out 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's going well. Self-published author, using my
Okay.
book to grow my business and to make an impact. All right. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very generic example, but my book's 4 months in. What would you say I should focus on to get more awareness around the book?
I would start with the bylines, writing opportunities, the guest blogging, the guest posting about your book, because you are an expert in this space, and you need to be able to tailor your book to, you think about it, you can take it to entrepreneurs. You want to take it to business leaders. I mean, everybody wants a book, right? So your book can be tailored to any market, but I would start by choosing 5 outlets that you feel like align with you and write 5 unique articles, because side note, it's bad PR to send the same article to 5 different outlets. They will find out. So truly, that's where I would begin, because that is going to be the first quick fire way to kind of tick off everything else.
Cool. I love it. I love it. Now let's give another example here. Let's say there's an author, self-published author.
Mm-hmm.
They are approaching their 1 year anniversary of their book. They want to bring it back to relevance. It's had a little bit of a dip. It's doing well for them, but it's not moving many copies unless they're moving the copies, which can be very lucrative as is. But let's say they want to do a 1 year resurgence. What should they focus on?
Okay, this is where I would say a podcast tour. And here's why. If you're coming up on a 1 year book anniversary, add a new chapter, add a bonus chapter, add something new to it, right? So you can talk about like 1 year anniversary, we're celebrating by having this bonus chapter that's never been read before or whatever, and truly start a podcast tour. And what I mean by podcast tour is have a goal of getting on 30 to 50 podcasts, because 30 to 50 podcasts might sound like a lot, but there's millions of podcasts out there on all different tiers.
In how short of a time frame do you suggest that? In a month or over the course
I
of
would
3
do
months?
it. I would do over the course of 90 days, right?
Okay.
So just set yourself up. Your book anniversary is here. Here's a special new thing about it, because you want to also like give a special for readers that might have already read the book. But we're really trying to get those new audience members and new readers, and just say, okay, the goal is, so if I need to be on 30 to 50 podcasts, I probably need to pitch 75 to 100 podcasts. And I know that sounds like a lot, but if you have a great pitch template, it can go pretty easily with you just personalizing the first sentence or two. And so if you just I would say take one full day, just work on your podcast tour strategy, get all of your pitches out, and then you will easily see the bookings starting to come in. And that's going to quickly move your book up and then lead to other media opportunities from there.
Oh, I love that. I want to add to that too, because I think it's so powerful. It could be a new chapter, but you could also, some of you might benefit from a complimentary workbook.
Oh, yes. See, you're the expert in this. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like, what can you do to create that lead flow, right? It's, as you talk about, it's the story, the pitch, those are the things. But it's like, okay, well, what could we already do? Well, just make the workbook based on the actual book. Most of your books are guides or how-tos. So make the workbook fancy designed, and it can even be digital. So it costs you nothing to actually produce, but that's a high value. So this is really, really good. And I also love just like the way you think about it is like, okay, if I need to get this many podcasts and I need to pitch this many people, let's focus on it. Let's get dialed in. And that's why you're known as the creative publicist genius, right? Like that's what your skill set is, right? And I think it's really powerful. So for everybody that's loved this episode, there's been a ton of value in it. Where can they go to learn more about you? Where can we sign up to work with you? Just give us all the good stuff.
Okay, absolutely. So our website is thefrontporchcollective.co. So forget the M. And then on Instagram, I'm at the Paige Dungan, where I share a ton of author tips and PR tips of what we talked about today. But through the website and through Instagram, you'll be able to get a hold of me. My email's on there. So reach out, and I'll send over my email to you, Jay, because I'm happy to answer any questions for your audience too.
Awesome. That's so generous of you. As you say that, like the Front Porch Collective, like I'm sure this is part of the whole story behind it, but like, I don't think anyone who's ever heard your website doesn't like trigger like a memory of a front porch experience.
Yes, that's exactly why it's named that. I am so happy that resonates with you.
Yeah. Like I immediately went, I'm going to leave it with this story and we're going to wrap up here. I was going to the NCAA Final Four in San Antonio, Texas. And I don't remember exactly what year it is, but I know I had at least one of my books, and I always bring books with me. And I'm staying at an Airbnb, and the family is living there. Like I didn't get my own home. It was early on in my career. So I was like, whatever I got to do to save budget. And at this Airbnb, they had on their porch, a mini happy hour with the family and then the guests.
I love
And it
that.
was so cool. And so obviously, what did I do? I gave everybody my book and we all took
See?
pictures. And it was like, it was this amazing thing, but it was the front porch where we had a nice, beautiful, delicious cold beer
Uh-huh.
and everybody got books. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. So I love it.
Oh,
That's
I
a
love
name.
that.
And for everyone that's listening, go check out thefrontporchcollective.co. That's CO. And reach out to Paige if you want to learn more about PR, if you
Surely.
want to learn
I'm
more
happy
about
to.
how to do it. If you need your 1 year book's coming up, hey, talk to Paige, right? If your book's static, talk to Paige. But that's what we got for you today. If you enjoyed this, reach out to Paige. Let us know you enjoyed this episode, and I will see y'all on the next one.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.